Good morning, sunshine. Happy Monday, and welcome back to Tiger's Occult Books and Research. If you like the work we're doing here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so you'll get notified every time we cover a new entity. I'm your friendly internet paranormal researcher and investigator, Dr. Morris, and today we're going to ancient Egypt to take a look at Ammit, the Devourer of the Dead. Referring to our main reference text, Illy's Encyclopedia of Spirits and Bain's Encyclopedia of Spirits and Ghosts in World Mythology, and this time the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and a smattering of further research, I'm going to tell you where it comes from, how to identify it, what it does, we'll address any ethical concerns related to the entity, and then we'll make sure we go over safe interaction with the entity if you should ever come across it during your travels. So, let's get started with the origins. A significant amount of data that we have on Ammit comes from the Papyrus of Ani, also known by its modern terminology, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This book actually dates to about 1250 BC. It was found in Luxor in 1888. No, not that Luxor. There we go. Now, we don't exactly know where in Luxor the papyrus was found, considering it was a band of Egyptians who were trading illegal antiquities, but it wound up in the hands of Sir Ernest Alfred Thompson Wallace Budge, after a bit of a caper, described in his 1920 work, By Nile and Tigris, a narrative of journeys in Egypt and Mesopotamia on behalf of the British Museum between the years 1886 and 1913. The Egyptian police had actually caught the illegal traders, and they had locked up the houses they kept the stolen goods in. Sir Budge paid some locals to tunnel into the house to retrieve the antiquities, while Sir Budge distracted the police officers with some cognac and a meal. The meal in question was half a sheep boiled with several pounds of rice, and served up in pieces with sliced lemons and raisins, so at least it was a substantial meal at that. After his locals were successful in tunneling into the house, Sir Budge packed everything up and smuggled everything to the British Museum and was paid £150 for his day's work. In today's currency, that'd be roughly 22,650 US dollars, yeah, give or take a couple cents. He mentioned that sum of money did not cover even his most necessary expenses. Now that we know how we acquired the Papyrus of Ani, let's get into what it actually is. Usually called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it's an ancient manuscript from around 1250 BC that told the story of the Theban scribe Ani as he made the journey from life to death, and what he would encounter in the Duat, the Egyptian afterlife. In that time period, Egyptians would put together an individualized book for certain important people. Ani was the official Theban scribe, so he certainly got one. It's a how-to manual to survive the journey to Duat, loaded with protective spells and specific declarations to make to the different entities that he would meet along the way. It was more or less a cheat sheet to get through Duat unscathed. So with that laid out, let's get into the physical identification methods. Here we have what is most likely the most famous image of Ammit, sitting beside Thoth. As we can see, Ammit is depicted as having the head of a crocodile, the upper body and mane of a lion, the hind legs of a hippopotamus. Interestingly enough, these three animals were considered to be the most dangerous animals on the Nile, which fits, as Ammit was the fate of that the impure deceased meet. En route to the Duat, the deceased would be brought before 42 gods and goddesses for judgment. There, the deceased would recite the 125th spell, where they would declare themselves innocent of 42 sins in front of the 42 judges. After that, the god Mot would weigh the deceased's heart against the feather of truth. Meanwhile, the god Thoth, often pictured with Ammit, would record the results. Ammit would sit patiently next to Mot's scales of justice. To my understanding, Ammit simply wants a meal, nothing more. There's no malice or anything, directed anger, none of that. Just hungry like a puppy dog. If the deceased's heart was lighter than Mot's feather of truth, the deceased was judged to be good and pure, and Ammit would have to go hungry. As they were deemed good and pure, they were allowed to proceed along the Duat to the Aryu, or Field of Reeds, which is the heavenly paradise. But there was always the chance for the next deceased. If the weighed heart was heavier than Mot's feather of truth, it was deemed to be impure, and Ammit would get a meal. There's two different translations here. One says Ammit would just eat the heart. Ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was housed in the heart, so without a soul, the deceased would become restless and forced to wander the Duat eternally. In a different translation, the one Illes is working from, Ammit would eat the entire deceased person, permanently ending their existence. Now, some translations consider Ammit to be a goddess, but most translations simply refer to her as a monster. So what we're looking for here is a never-human, Class 5 devouring chimera. So let's get into the folklore, tales, and legends. Ammit doesn't really seem to have a lot going on. Plate 3 of the Egyptian Book of the Dead simply refers to Ammit in 2 sentences. Behind Thoth stands the female monster Ammit, the eater of the dead. And later on it says, let it not be given to the devourer Ammit to prevail over him. That's it. Different versions of the Book of the Dead also mention Ammit briefly, but we go with the Papyrus of Ani specifically because of them all. This is the one that's been best preserved. Other depictions include this one from the Book of the Dead of Nebqued, written sometime between 1391 and 1353, that we find in Lucia Gallen's 2008 work, Gods, Rites, Rituals, and Religion of Ancient Egypt. Another image here, this one from a 2nd century Theban Book of the Dead, shows Ammit here waiting on the other side of the scales, just kind of doing her thing, waiting for someone to get judged so she can have dinner. Moving into the ethical considerations, as we can see, just about every reference to Ammit is fairly similar, if not absolutely identical. She hangs out next to the scales, waits for a snack. That's it. Interestingly enough, Illes makes the observation that she holds her position precisely because she is resistant to appeals. Illes also notes that Ammit is a neutral spirit. She just does her job eating, processing, and eliminating the lack of goodness from the world. That's it. She's a good girl. She does her job. Truth be told, if you find yourself in a position where you actually have to interact with Ammit, you're already far beyond my help. While Ammit may be depicted in Marvel or other modern interpretations, I can find no mythological data to corroborate Ammit having the ability to leave the Duat in the first place. So going solely off the mythology, Ammit is truly a neutral entity. It's in your best interests to be a good person throughout your life, so if you do have to interact with Ammit, she doesn't eat your heart. Or you. I can't really get a straight answer on that one, but she's eating something. So, getting into the safe interaction methods, the Papyrus of Ani actually contains several protective spells. Well, alright, they're called spells, but they read more like prayers to me. Spell 30 Bravo reads, O heart of my mother, O heart of my mother, O heart of my many different forms, do not stand up as a witness against me, do not be opposed to me in the tribunal, do not be hostile to me in the presence of the keeper of the balance, for you are my Ka, which was in my body, the protectors who hath made my members hale. Go forth to the happy place whereto we speed. Do not make my name stink to the entourage who make men. Do not tell lies about me in presence of the God. It is indeed well that you should hear. Spell 125 is the negative confession that, well, alright, look, it's 42 sins to 42 gods, so it goes on for quite some time, and it's pleading innocence of all crimes. Spell 161 is a good call. That one's used to protect the deceased, give them the breath of life, and to help them make it through the Duat. The last spell is spell 182, which invokes the protection of Thoth to protect the deceased from hostile entities found throughout the Duat. It may work on Ammit. Ammit, but I doubt it. What you could do is pick up a copy of the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, Journey Through the Afterlife by John H. Taylor. That's not this one, that's a different book. And just memorize the whole thing before you die, if you think you're going to have a chance to go to the Dewat when you die. But, honestly, you should just try really hard to not die in the first place and be a good person with the time you got. Anyway, that's about all the information I was able to dig up about Ammit, the Devourer of Men. I hope you found it informative. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find me on all the regular alt-text sites as well, depending on how tight you've got your tinfoil hat. If you have an entity you need me to cover, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. Till next time, fellas, I'll see you down here at the lab.